Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I'm going to be talking about astrology and an accident that former NBA player Shawn Bradley had that had left him paralyzed. Now, Shawn Bradley was a former NBA player. He played I know he played with the Dallas Mavericks for a number of years. He was somebody that was how we call a notorious shot blocker. He was 7'6", one of the tallest players to ever play in the NBA, and he wasn't one to back down from any kind of challenge or fight. He's a Sun in Aries and likely Moon in Cancer, depending on time of birth. Have I don't have his time of birth, so I had to improvise once again and do a solar/sunrise chart in which I put the sun at the same spot as the ascendant. But anyway, I'm going to talk about some natal placements and transits he had at the time of the accident and see how this may have been tied into to the accident he had and that left him paralyzed. Now, when I looked online, they didn't elaborate on any of the reports I saw as far as what part of the body specifically or body parts that were paralyzed. I'm gonna look and see if I could see anything through the chart and natal placements transits that might give a clue um, to this. But I want to talk about first, as far as his natal chart, I thought was interesting. One thing that stood out to me, I call it a loose stellium because if you're talking about stellium being a series of conjunctions with astrological energies, this would be a weak one. He has the Sun in Aries, based on the solar sunrise time at 1 degree. Then he's got followed by Chiron in Aries at 12 degrees, followed by Mercury retrograde in Aries at 15 degrees, almost at the 16th degree. I use the solar sunrise time. That's what that degree's position is based on. The sun, of course, can be connected with the physical body in astrology. When you look at a stellium in astrology, it's very systematic how you break it down, dissect it. It starts out with the first planet or astrological energy in the stellium. Then that energy is followed by the next astrological energy, and then it ends with the final part. And for depending on how many, in this case, there's 3 astrological energies in the stellium. Basically, it's like an astrological statement that begins with the first energy and it ends with the final energy in it. Sun being in Aries, of course, the sun can be connected with the physical body. Chiron can be associated with wounds, not just emotional ones, but physical ones as well. And Mercury can be associated with short journeys and also, I would say, vehicles as well. People that are, it can be associated with driving. Mercury is also the ruler of his third house of short journeys, local transportation in the solar sunrise chart. But it starts out with the sun being the physical body, then followed by Chiron, which can be connected with physical injuries, and not just emotional ones, but physical ones as well. And then ending with Mercury, his physical body was indeed injured, suffered, you could say, physical wounds, and even suffering, I would say, and be due to a car that was driving. Mercury is connected with local transportation. I would say it could be associated with vehicles as well. And the fact that this was in Aries, it shows to me that this driving was likely very aggressive and might have been going pretty fast as well. I mean, he has Gemini falls on the cusp of the third house in the solar sunrise chart, and Gemini is very fast energy, to say the least. And another thing, when I'm looking at, I want to like go over to a transit momentarily because that might give a clue as to what was actually paralyzed. Um, when he had this accident occurred on January 20th, 2021. Now today, on March 17, 2021, he has expounded and elaborated on it in a statement that he made. Um, Transit Sun in Aquarius was not far from his natal North Node. And the sun, again, could be associated with the physical body. North Node can be tied in with what our destiny, affect our future. And the fact that it's in Aquarius, it tells me that possibly this was the lower leg somewhere that he may be paralyzed. We're going to see probably some video coming up in the near future, and through it, if we see him in a wheelchair, obviously to me it would be likely that that it is somehow tied in with the lower legs. Aquarius could be connected with the lower legs, the ankles, shins, tibia, fibula. Um, and the thing about it too is that he had his spinal cord had been injured as a result of this, and the fact is, the sun can be associated with the spine, and the transit sun was not far from his natal North Node in Aquarius at the time of the accident. And another thing I thought was interesting, they said he had some kind of surgery on his neck, and interestingly enough, he does have Mars in Taurus in his natal chart. Oddly enough, it's close to the algal degree, and Mars in Taurus can sometimes signify or manifest or be expressed in surgery on the neck. Mars is associated with surgery, and of course Taurus is associated with the neck. He has his natal Saturn conjunct his Mars, and can show increased maybe difficulty, perhaps in dealing with it. They said, and the word was arduous, I believe, was used as far as his rehab. I'm sure the rehab will require a lot of laborious effort in order to get himself completely rehab. If that is attainable, I don't know if this is something, if the paralysis, if this is something that is definitive as to whether it could go away or not. Will it dissipate? Will he get improvement on it? These are things I am unsure of at this time, and hopefully, prayerfully, that he will come out of this back to, I hope, 100% normal. Prayerfully, my condolences and prayers do go out to the family and close friends of Shawn Bradley if any of them happen, remote chance they see this video. And the thing about it too is, interestingly enough, in the solar sunrise chart, he has Leo on the cusp of the sixth house, and that can denote in Leo-related injuries, which could include the spine injuries to the spine. The ruler of that, the sun, is in Aries, and that's of course the physical body. And again, he does have Chiron in a loose conjunction. I say a loose conjunction to his natal sun. And another thing I noticed he had at the time, a transit that occurred at the time of this accident, is that transit Mars was in transit Mars in Taurus. He's having his Mars return at this time. Transit Mars in Taurus was in conjunct his natal Neptune in Sagittarius in the 8th house in the solar/sunrise chart. And when you have you're talking about, in conjuncts in astrology can be connected with adjustments, but they could also be associated with physical related issues and debilitations. Mars again is associated with surgery. He did have the surgery on his neck. It's interesting having Neptune in that 8th house in the solar sunrise chart. The 8th house is associated with surgery. Neptune is anesthesia, could be connected with that. Most surgeries do require that, but the fact that it's in Sagittarius and being in the 8th house, that really, what I'm thinking of, he might have required a lot more than what a lot other, or more, definitely, I would say more than what most people had. The man is 7 feet 6 inches tall, and might have to be proportionate with the body size, so it wouldn't surprise me if he did require more in order to have that surgery. Another thing too is, based on the solar sunrise time, he has what would be called, it would be a cardinal grand cross involving the sun, which is the physical body, the moon in Cancer, and Pluto in the solar sunrise chart in his 6th house of health, and also Jupiter. And thing about this is, could this accident have anything to do with it? I mean, when you're talking about a grand crosses in astrology, they could be connected with much tribulation and adversity. And the thing to me, especially having the sun being involved with physical body, and you also have, you're talking about Pluto as well, which could be associated with surgery. And in the sixth house, it is in Libra, is Pluto at a critical degree at 0 degrees. And Libra can be associated with the lower back. I don't know if this, I mean, this was a spinal cord injury. The lower back is at least very close to that spine. He might have some issues with the lower back one way or another as a result of the accident. And Jupiter, of course, could be associated with your exuberance and your enthusiasm. And he has it anyway in Capricorn, which is in its fall to begin with, which indicates it could be some kind of limitation, or I should say, it could enlarge despondency in some cases, and maybe enthusiasm may be limited because Jupiter is in the sign of Capricorn, which is the sign connected with limitations and restrictions, and again can be associated with despondency. And the thing is, yeah, and this is terrible that something like this happened. And he also has transit Saturn at the time of the accident, was very close to his natal north node, uh, in Aquarius. And Saturn can sometimes indicate chronic debilitations. It can be difficulties in general. And again, going back to Aquarius being connected with the lower legs, it wouldn't surprise me if the lower legs were paralyzed as a result of this. And also, Aquarius is associated with what's unanticipated, very shocking, the unexpected. So, and another thing too is that, interestingly enough, transit Mercury, what looks like was in his 12th house in the solar sunrise chart. Transit Mercury can be, let's say, connected with vehicles. It's in the unpredictable sign of Aquarius. The 12th house is the unseen, so it's not surprising that this probably caught him very off guard when he got hit by this driver. And he was riding a bicycle, Shawn Bradley, at the time that he had the accident. Uranus, the planet Uranus, can be associated with accidents. And transit, I mean, this was just a transit from two planets to each other. But he did have, but at the time, as far as electional astrology goes, transit Mars was conjunct Uranus at the time, and that could indicate that accidents may be more prevalent at the time. Mars could be associated with accidents, and so can Uranus. Mars is very impulsive, impetuous energy, and Uranus is accidents. Being in Taurus, it's not surprising there's an injury that, well, or at least there was surgery that was on his neck as a result of this accident. So it's really not much more for me to get as far as looking at his chart and transits at the time that might have played some kind of role in this. But this is just, again, it's going to be something that's going to take, I mean, a lot of laborious effort for him to get through. Having a sun in Aries, he surely, I'm sure, is a fighter. He got into a number of confrontations on the court. I can remember seeing highlights of him when I watched him as a basketball player, when I'd watch like Sports Center or whatever, and he wasn't one to really back down from anybody. And the fact that, being an Aries, I'm sure he is a very strong fighter. I believe he will get through this one way or another. It's just a matter of how much recovery is he going to have, what is actually physically attainable. What he doesn't attain will not be attributed, I don't think, to lack of effort on his part. It will just be something, there's certain things that we can't, overcome, no matter how much willpower one has. And I hope that this is something that is physically attainable and that's not an insurmountable issue for Shawn Bradley. So anyway, people, That'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay